All right, welcome to Project 2, slab built plates, bowls, and cups. We're gonna try to show a little bit of everything in a couple different varieties. So we're gonna do as much as we can in the given time period. First things first, start with a clean work surface. Roll out your slabs and decide which slabs are for what. So when you go and you plan out your slabs, or you cut them or you roll them, decide like this is going to be a cup slab or this is going to be a bowl slab. For this project, you're going to need a fettling knife, a wooden knife, your serrated rib, or your knife needle tool if you've got it, your regular rib, like I said, paintbrush, and that needle tool that I mentioned earlier. These are all the construction tools you'll need to be able to do this project. I would also recommend having a bowl of water and some slip of whatever clay body you're using. If you need some slip, I have a big bucket full of it here in studio. You're welcome to come and get some. Just ask me and I will put it out for you. So I've got these slabs, and these are going to be for cups. These are my cup slabs. I've sort of designated them to be cups. So the first one we're going to do is a cup built around a form. I have these really nice cardboard tubes here in the studio, but if you don't have one, that's totally fine. You can grab a cup out of the cabinet, or something cylindrical in your home is perfectly fine. This is the easiest way to build this sort of shape, and when we go to build it, we want to use slabs that are able to stand up on their own. So first things first, you always want to compress your slab. I don't care if it looks pretty smooth. When you go to stretch it or you move it about, slabs are really sensitive and they'll remember the direction that you've chosen to move it. So in order to counteract that, we're going to just compress those clay platelets in a bunch of different directions. So we're going to hit it up and down, we're going to hit it side to side, and maybe even diagonal. And we need to do both sides. Not only will this solve warping specifically, it'll also create a nice smooth surface for you to paint on. What we're not looking to have is the canvas texture. So when you roll your slab out on your canvas, it's going to pick up the texture of the canvas, which is like a bunch of little dots. And unfortunately, that's not what we want. That's not the texture we're looking for. If you're going to do texture, do texture. Don't leave it, ucky in color, looking like canvas. So I've rolled out my slab, and I'm just sort of checking to see if it feels the way I like it, and making sure my measurements are good. So I'm going to get my tube or my cup, whatever you've got on hand will work. We need something that'll create a structural support. And especially when you use things like cups, we want to grab a little paper towel, get it wet. We're going to wrap it around whatever we're using. This is so that when we go to take the tube out or the cup, it's not stuck to the clay, because that newspaper is going to dry pretty quickly. It's going to dry faster than the clay. And if we make sure that our thing is covered, it should ideally just slide right out without damaging the shape of your cup. So this is pretty easy peasy. I'm just going to take the edge and I'm going to slowly roll it around, trying to keep it as even as I possibly can. And I'm going to set it up on its edge so it sort of knows where the base is. So for here, I'm thinking about how I want to finish it, how I want to connect it. Do I want it to have a seam? Do I want the seam to be visible? Do I want it to be, you know, flat? And what I'm motioning towards is, if I don't clean that up, what's going to happen is I'm going to have a really thick spot at one point in the cup where the slabs connect. So what I've decided is I want it to be smooth. So I am just going to make one slice, a nice even clean cut with my needle tool, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm just going to fold it back against that ridge to make sure I've got the right length. And my slab is pretty dry, so I was able to sort of fold it back and break it. But ideally we do this because I want my seam to lie flush. We want it to be even. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean that up and hit it with my serrated rib and slip and score, because that's the way we're going to get it to stay connected. Because that slipping and scoring is the answer always. So get a little slip. Little slip, a lot of slip, you know, whatever works. And we're going to press those edges together, and I'm just going to run my finger along the side and try to compress it as much as possible and bring it together. And I might even grab my rib and sort of just scrape across, just like we did with the coils, because I don't want any sort of visible edge. We want it to be a pretty clean connection. So I'm looking around for my my regular rib so that I can clean up this scratchy texture that I made. And there we have it. I've made a cylinder. Lovely, 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 lovely. So the next step is creating a base for the cylinder and deciding that I want it to be just a flat base, nothing crazy. I'm going to go ahead and just, you know, compress just a single section of this slab, because I don't need all of it, I just need a little bit. And I'm going to try to line it up on the furthest corner, you know, because I want to be economic with my slab usage. Now I'm just stenciling a line through with my needle tool just to get a feel for it, and then I'm going to push my needle tool all the way through, and I'm actually going to use it to cut instead of my knife. And that's because it's at a funny angle, and sometimes the knife will cut all the way through and leave a funny, like an awkward mark, or it'll tear up my pot, whereas the needle tool on the side, it's not sharp on the side, so it'll just sort of hit the side of my pot without taking too much off. So I didn't score or slip, so that's going to pop right off. And we're going to go ahead and take care of that and hit the edges real fast. Look at that. Beautiful little slip. Line it up and just push down a little bit and connect the two pieces. So my tube is a really nice stable structure to flip my pot over with. It's going to allow me to clean up that bottom without worrying about the lip getting smushed. If I were to just build this without the tube, which you can do, it's not impossible, I would have to be conscious of not pushing too hard on the bottom, because there is no support structure. That tube or that cup, whatever you choose to use, has given us a little extra support. Now I'm going to clean up that canvas mark and the sides that I've just scraped as much as I possibly can. My cylinder is pretty wet still, like it's dry but it's wet, you know, so it's not ready to do anything too drastic. If I push too hard here, what's going to happen is I'm going to get a little bit of a divot right there in the center. So I just want to scrape it lightly, very lightly, because like I said, it's a cylinder. So if I were to push too hard, what's going to happen is right where I'm pointing, it's going to sort of like bow in. Cool. So great. We've got a cylinder with a bottom. That is like the best start we could possibly have for making a cup. So the next thing to think about is a handle. And I'm just going to cut off these yucky edges and cut a straight slab, just something that would be nice for a handle shape, something that'll work well. And I'm going to bend it into a general like curve, so that way when I go to connect my handle, it's going to remember the fact that it was a curve, and so bending like this is not going to be a big stretch. When you add your handle, think about like the shape. What shape handle do I want? How thick do I want it? How wide? Do I want it to be a big C, a little c? How close do I want it to the cup? How many fingers do I want to be able to put, in between it? If my handle were too far away from the side of my cup, what's going to happen is it's going to be awkward, and maybe the handle will cause the cup to tip. So I'm going to make it sort of close to the cup, and I really want to just make the decision on where to put my handle. And you really, when you put your handle on, you want to make sure that your handle is at least a ½ inch from your rim. We don't want it exactly right next to the rim, and the reason being is if it were right up close to the rim, what's going to happen is it's going to bump your face every time you go to drink. So if you put it down a little bit, it'll be not only equidistant and like the weight will be distributed better, it'll be more comfortable to drink from. So when you go to attach your handle, always start with the top of your pot and work your way down. That way you can sort of see where the bottom should go, because chances are, if your depth perception is anything like mine, you might not be able to put it on, exactly straight from the get-go. So getting one part right will allow you to really just line up that second half. So when you've got it lined up, slip and score and make it really nice. And just double check from that perspective that it looks like it's going all the way down and it's not sort of tilting at an angle. So I've only lightly attached it. So in order to make sure it's secure, I'm going to take the end of my wooden knife and also a little bit of water, and I'm going to run it along the seams and sort of scrape the edges of the handle and the edges of the cup together. I'm going to do that on the bottom and the top as well, on the inside and the outside. We want to make sure we do this because if our handle is not attached well, it'll just pop right off. It doesn't care that you just stuck it on with, scoring. The handle is having to bear weight, so if it's not secure, even if it's bisque fired, it'll still pop off.